Hey everybody, this is your daily dose of all things royal.
We know from the first book that it was Meghan speaking, and now we know it's Meghan speaking again. And so this isn't because the book contains amazing revelations, it doesn't at all. But we know that he is the tool of the Sussexes. And as the tool of the Sussexes, he has done the best he can to blacken the royal family.
Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. So I have to say, rest in peace, Scobie's career, because this book is a definite career killer. I've had the chance to briefly look through this book, as I did get it at discounted price, in order to pick apart the lies. But so far, what everybody has been saying in the media is true. There's nothing really new aside from Meghan and Harry rehashing their grievances, pushing these false narratives, and using Scobie to do it. What's glaringly obvious about this book is the attempt to rewrite history once again in positioning a different image of the Sussexes in having moved on, while taking no accountability for all the damage that they have caused in their actions. Now, I believe the reason why they have backtracked on a lot of this stuff is because they have failed miserably. They made bad decisions in accusing the family of being racist, and I think that that in itself completely backfired onto Meghan, because she honestly thought that people were going to take her side and believe her, and all these wonderful deals were going to come in and they would have been thriving. But that didn't happen. And soon enough, after all these years, Meghan and Harry finally realized that biting the hand that fed them was not necessarily the smartest choice. I promise you, if things had gone their way and Meghan was swimming like a pig in shit and money, none of this would be happening. I can tell you this right now. I am 99.9999999% sure that the person that helped with this book is Ashley, the minion that follows always 2 or 3 steps behind both Harry and Meghan because she believes that they are royal. So before Archewell, Ashley came from United Talent Agency, which is an agency representing their clients, such as celebrities, sports stars, musicians. Now, Ashley is mentioned throughout this book, and I don't think it's a coincidence that Scobie signed with UTA. So I wonder how he made that connection. I mean, is it a coincidence that all these people Omid mentioned in his acknowledgments in his UTA family tie back to Ashley? You decide. As I read through the acknowledgments, you realize how much Hollywood and America had supported Omid in getting this book off the ground. He thanks all these people who are Americans. I mean, he's got some UK contacts, but for the most part, it was America helping put out this trash. Once again, Hollywood gets markled because they bet on the wrong horse. And this book is having a tremendous amount of backlash onto Meghan and Harry because it is obvious, and many of us see it and are calling it out, that they were behind a lot of the lies that have been put in this book. Now, what I fail to understand is, why does Hollywood continue to back this non-entity in thinking that they're going to make money off of it? I think many people in Hollywood have finally seen the light, but the constant push in the PR and the propaganda continues. Is it because Meghan has Tyler Perry and Oprah Winfrey backing her, or the perceived idea that these two are backing them? I don't know. I do think that these celebrities that backed Meghan do not want to admit that they were wrong. Scobie's publisher really tried to establish him as a credible journalist. So about the author in the book, it writes, Scobie is a London-based journalist, broadcaster, and author. His New York Times best-selling biography of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Finding Freedom, remains one of the fastest-selling royal books of all time and made Scobie the most talked-about royal correspondent of this generation. Sure, Jan. Today, he remains an authoritative voice on the British royal family, which he has covered since 2011, and he can regularly be seen on U.S. television as a contributor on Good Morning America and ABC News, helping shape coverage of breaking royal news and major royal events. He also serves as an editor-at-large for Harper's Bazaar, an advocate for more diverse, inclusive, and ethical media, Scobie is regularly invited to speak with journalism students and at industry events. Need I say any more as to the Americans pushing this guy as some credible journalist for the royal family? Give me a break. Before we get into some of the nuggets from this book, I would like for us to look at the notes section at the very end of this book, because this is where Scobie cites where he got this information from. And he writes that the events described in the pages of Endgame draw on more than 11 years of reporting, conversations, interviews, and experiences from my time covering the royal beat, as well as firsthand accounts from hundreds of engagements, major events, overseas tours, and interactions with members of the royal family. Some names have been removed for legal reasons. And I'm going to guess that some names were removed to distance the Sussexes from this book. We can guess that some of the members of the royal family were Harry and Meghan. Now, according to Scrappy Doo, he says that he interviewed more than 60 sources, a leaner pool than Finding Freedom, which started out even smaller in the initial months of writing to ensure the project was not leaked before it was announced in June 2023. Well, that's a lie. He announced that he was writing this book in the summer of 2022. And I'm guessing the smaller pool of people was limited to Meghan Markle. Scobie then goes on to say, as is the often frustrating nature of royal news, a lot of interviews were given on the promise of anonymity, a move done for a number of reasons, including to acknowledge sensitivity of roles, to protect careers or relationships, and to ensure safety. The upside to this is that it has allowed sources the freedom to speak candidly and critically without fear. A number of people also spoke on background, which means you won't see their quotes in the book, but the information they provided has informed areas of reporting and certain scenes. Some also spoke strictly off the record. So I am assuming that the environment or background of the silence in the car during the Fab Four walkabout was part of this caveat, I'm assuming. So who else would have leaked this information? It's either Meghan or Harry. Not the Waleses, definitely not those two. They don't speak to Scobie, nor do they want to speak to Scobie. You almost have to wonder the IQ level of the people that they were targeting to sell this book to, because if you put two and two together, you think to yourself, well, how would anybody know that the 156-second ride in the car was in complete silence and it made Meghan and Harry uncomfortable? The only people that could talk to that really would be Meghan and Harry. Like, the stupidity of Omid and Meghan putting this in the book really shows how stupid they are. It begs the question, how did Meghan get into Northwestern in the first place? Oh, most likely she used the race card. And this paragraph here states how Scobie manipulated the sources, in which he says, a few additional notes before we get started with the references. Unless otherwise stated in the following pages or made clear in the book, quotes featured in Endgame with no attribution are from my own interviews or conversations, so recollections may vary. All information from legal actions and court cases cited in the book has been referenced from original documents and not news coverage. In some of the long-winded explanations on the sources of where he got information to create the chapters, he cites that all these books, and these are just a couple of them that I picked out, that he used in order to shape the narrative around this endgame. Some of those books included Our King, Rebel Prince by Tom Bower, Palace Papers, Queen of Our Times. But interestingly enough, to all the biographies that he used to formulate this crap, he doesn't use Tom Bower's Revenge. I wonder why. Wait, scratch that. We all know why. Now, I don't think anybody would be surprised when I say that the biggest chapter where Scobie focused a lot of attention to was the chapter around race and the royals. And this has fingerprints of Meghan and her Sussex Squad psychos all throughout it. Let me show you the references that he used in order to make his case that the royals are so racist in defense of Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. In addition to citing all the race baiters that were in Meghan and Harry's Netflix mockumentary, he also mentioned Safiya Noble's book of Algorithms of Oppression, as well as one of the lead squatties, R.S. Locke. Now, for those that have been in the drama or know about the drama with the Sussex Squids, R.S. Locke is one of the head squatties who does put out a lot of hate against the monarchy. She is a freelance writer that writes for the Griot, which we all know has connection to Archewell from a monetary standpoint. All you have to do is look at the money that went to URL Media and trace it from there. I am 99.9999999% certain that this head squatty is on the Sussex payroll. She was a part of the brigade that attacked Samantha, as well as supporting Christopher Boozy and his efforts to silence people online in order to deplatform them, such as folks on YouTube as well as on Twitter. And the fact that Scobie references this freelance race-baiting anti-monarchist's work in his chapter against the royals and these racism claims just shows how aligned he is with Meghan's camp. You can't deny that this coordination and smear campaign leading up to this book wasn't a result of the very same people who have been going on about accusing the royals of being racist in order to tear them down. And, it's getting tiring, and these folks look pathetic and sad, and they need to move on and get over the fact that not everything is attributed to the color of your skin. Meghan didn't fit in the royal family, nor was qualified for the job because she was a liar, a manipulator, and she undermined the institution. Why would anybody want a traitor like that around them? All this book did was validate how petty and manipulative Meghan Markle really is. And to try and backtrack and reshape the narrative through this book was a stupid thing to do because there is no accountability for the actions the Sussex took in order to make money. From what I gather, this book was used as an opportunity now to shift the blame as to why the Harkles have been failing, from blaming the family and not letting Meghan be heard, as well as the choices they made when they signed all those deals and blaming the fact that Hollywood wanted to sign with a royal, thinking that they could get more money out of it. Like, it goes from one thing to another, blaming COVID for causing a setback in the production of their projects. I mean, the list goes on and on. I think the funniest thing that I've seen so far in this book is the attempt to shift the blame onto the British newspapers for why people don't believe Harry and Meghan. Scobie writes, years of British newspapers attempting to poke holes in the couple's every word and action has also strained the Sussexes' credibility, and sources said both Harry and Meghan reluctantly accept it's an area that needs serious improvement. Well, you think? Maybe if Harry and Meghan told the truth, maybe there wouldn't be so many holes to poke. At least just don't do it in a court of law because you can't really blame the newspapers for reporting what is said in the papers. I find it absolutely ludicrous that they think because the public doesn't trust them anymore, which we don't, they have known to lie, not only from a court standpoint, but their own families. Meghan's family has come forward to say that Meghan is a liar. It just shows you how desperate they are to really erase what has happened in the past and start over. And I think the strategy now is to continue to keep forcing these false narratives to a point where we're so exhausted that we just stop talking about it. But what they're failing to realize is that there are people like us who will not allow these two to get away with it. So as many times over, they want to go ahead and change the narrative and shift the blame. We are here to put it right back onto them because they need to be held accountable. And if the court of law is not going to hold them accountable, then let the public hold them accountable. If the Sussex PR camp thinks that by saturating the media over and over with these false narratives is going to make us tired of speaking out, it's not. We're going to continue to keep calling it out. And if these two want to continue to keep deplatforming people, promise you, the moment one gets deplatformed, 5 more are going to pop up. So either cut the shit out or expect to receive more criticism when you continue to violate the public space with these lies and pushing forward misinformation. This truly was a blame game, with Meghan and Harry taking no accountability for their role that was played in all of this. Let's take a look at some of those examples. Where it's the most obvious of the lack of accountability and reshaping of the narrative is in the chapter called Gloves Off. This chapter begins talking about the home life of Meghan and Harry and how committed they are to their children in preparing breakfast and taking them to school, dropping them off for toddler play dates. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. Well, actually, Meghan made this stuff up. I don't believe a word of it. It then goes into talking about how busy they are with meetings throughout the day. Scobie really hypes up Harry's happiness and how busy he is living his best life with acupuncture, bike rides, his personal trainer, stating that he is in a really good place, which we all know that this is a clapback because he's been looking miserable every time we see him. Now, here in this chapter, Scobie shifts the blame of the stresses that Meghan and Harry have had and ties it back to the royal family. So it says here, as stressful as it was, their more recent experiences back in the royal bubble have confirmed that leaving it all behind was exactly the right thing to do for them. Even though they live completely separate lives from the royal family, key moments have seen brief returns of the chaos. I think a lot of that chaos and drama is caused by Meghan. Some, such as the Platinum Jubilee celebrations, were anticipated, while others, particularly the death of the Queen, unexpectedly pulled them back into the institution's whirlwind of games and manipulations, the same vortex that had hauled them towards its dark center for 4 years. These jackasses want us to believe that all this chaos that's surrounding Meghan Markle is a result of the palace and their machinations in creating it. Right, so the palace were the ones that booed Meghan and Harry when they were at the Jubilee. I mean, wasn't it their choice to leave the Jubilee early because they couldn't stand the fact that people just didn't like them? Let's talk about the Queen's funeral. They made that all about themselves by throwing temper tantrums and being so inconsiderate to the rest of the family. Let's not forget, Meghan had her film crew in tow.
And they've moaned enormously that on the car going there, they didn't say a word to them, you see. And now, if actually you look at the truth, it was that they discovered that Meghan had ordered her own cameramen to come. They thought that was a very bad deal. They went round. She kept them waiting an hour and a quarter while she chose what to wear. And then they went in an under 2-minute drive. So they were very upset because the Queen was dead. Now, is that a big deal? Is that something to go over several pages? No, not. It's absolute nonsense.
Any slight against Meghan Markle or anything that seems not to go her way is deemed to be a big deal.
If Meghan and Harry so left this all behind, then why keep the titles? Also, why insist that you have a property or keep your name as Counselor of State? Why are they even on the website? Why make such a big stink about the titles for the kids when they're useless here in the United States? I'm convinced that Meghan and Harry are just two miserable people and enjoy gaslighting the public. They use Scobie to do this, and they know that people are going to be angry when they read this because the hypocrisy, seriously, is truly off the charts. This chapter then goes into talking about September of 2022 and recalling the new narrative of what happened. As Scobie writes, he says, when the couple left their children in California with Meghan's mother, Dorito, and a nanny to visit the United Kingdom and Germany for 5 days of engagements in September 2022, neither knew that the quick fire trip would result in a 2-week return to royal drama. Neither did I. During the visit, I joined some of their engagements and watched as Meghan gave a speech to teenagers and young adults at the One World Summit in Manchester. In the post-pandemic world, Harry and Meghan wanted to remind people that they hadn't lost touch with the organizations and causes they were involved in before their departure. There was talk of visiting the Queen in Scotland, but her schedule, the couple was told, was already packed. Any rumors about Her Majesty possibly being in her final days had certainly not made it as far as California. With the imminent releases of their Netflix docuseries and Spare, family members and palace officials were also doing their best to keep the couple at arm's length and out of the loop. I'm going to stop right there. Do you see how he just rewrote the narrative, shifting the disgusting behavior off of Meghan and Harry for refusing to see the Queen? They're now putting it on a dead woman who can't speak for herself, indicating that her schedule was busy and they were there and they tried to make time for her. We know that's bullshit because they had a full packed schedule. Where were Meghan and Harry going to fit in to go see the Queen? You see how nasty and manipulative these two are? Further in the chapter, let's revisit the paragraph where Scobie writes about Harry being ignored by his family when the Queen was sick and, they were desperately trying to get to Balmoral, what they said. As it says here, with no further information from other family members or palace aides, the Sussexes and their team had to operate in the dark. Harry was informed that William had already secured a flight with his uncles Andrew and Edward's wife Sophie, but he couldn't get in touch with anyone about joining that flight. It was upsetting to witness, said a source close to the Sussexes. Harry was completely by himself on this. Buckingham Palace released a further update. Following further evaluation this morning, the Queen's doctors are concerned for Her Majesty's health and have recommended that she remain under medical supervision. The Queen remains comfortable and at Balmoral. Harry knew it was happening, and happening fast. All right, so they're trying to spin this narrative that, the family was so cold to Harry and didn't inform him of what was going on and didn't want him around and purposely excluded him off the flight. Now, this past weekend, Sue Me, who's another brilliant creator, told the story in a way that I couldn't do it justice. So I hope she doesn't mind, but I'd like to share a clip of that because this is what really happened that the Harkles want to bury, hence the reason why we have this new stupid narrative.
William, Andrew, Edward, and Sophie, keep in mind, 2 of those passengers were the Queen's children. That is 50% of the humans she gave birth to. It's important we never lose sight of that. And then William, who is second in line after Charles in the succession. But the plane was held up. And when I spoke about this a week ago, a lot of our UK viewers wrote in and said, yeah, we remember seeing that plane on the tarmac for like over an hour, not taking off, and nobody understood why. Well, why is what Tom Bower told us. Apparently, the sock puppet wanted Nutmeg to go with him, and Charles said no. They also asked Catherine to stay behind, and Catherine did it, in order to ease the blow that Nutmeg was not going to be invited. So, good for Catherine. She took one for the team. Apparently, Sophie wasn't about to, which shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. I don't imagine they even dared to ask her to stay behind. So, yeah, they waited for the sock puppet, who was throwing a temper tantrum because the little woman couldn't go with him. And that's why Andrew, no matter what you think of him, the Queen was his mother, and Edward, very few people have a bad opinion of Edward. That's why they did not get to be with their mother in her final moments. The sock puppet just pooed all over that for everyone because he wanted his wife to get that photo op, either going into, was it Sandringham or was it Balmoral? I don't remember. Either going in or coming out, he wanted her to have that photo op. He wanted her to be able to say, I was there. I caught the Queen's last breath in my handkerchief, and I'm going to take it away and cast a spell with it. It was absurd. people suffered as a result of that stupid little temper tantrum. And if he didn't realize the situation when they told him an hour earlier to get on that plane, well, more fool him. But this is not a question of anybody kept the information from him. They tried to get him on that plane. He wouldn't go, and eventually they felt compelled to take off without him, a decision they should have made an hour earlier if they had. William, Andrew, Edward, Sophie, all would have been with the Queen at the end. And that is something you can't take back. You can't fix this. You can't, there are no do-overs. That is something the sock puppet did to them. Why? Because they were kind enough to wait for him.
I'm going to link the rest of this video below. Definitely check it out. Sue Me is excellent. If you're not subscribed, definitely subscribe to her channel. I look forward to her videos on Thursdays and Sundays. If you want a fair, balanced, and rational mind to this whole saga, this is the channel for it. Now, after listening to Sue Me, and you fully understand that it was Meghan being the reason why Edward and Andrew didn't get to be with their mother in her last moments on this earth, you realize how stupid this paragraph sounds in what Scobie writes. But the support ended there. For the duration of their time in Britain, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex were on the receiving end of snubs and brush-offs. At the state funeral, Camilla, Kate, and Sophie noticeably went out of their way to ignore Meghan outside Westminster Abbey. They did their best to remain focused on the importance of the trip and honoring Her Majesty, but being dragged into the royal fold again was an unpleasant experience. Well, I'm sorry, Megs, that you felt uncomfortable, but you deserved a lot more. And take it as an act of kindness that you were even allowed to be in the vicinity of this family after what she has done. The whole family was gracious to this woman, and she continues to keep harping on the fact that she felt snubbed and ignored. How old are you, Meghan? 5? Grow up. Harry, and most definitely Meghan, hate the fact that their lies have been exposed and they couldn't get away with all the things that they were doing. You see, Harry's on a mission, and it's not because he's doing it to create a safer place online. He's doing it to censor people. He doesn't want journalists exposing him for the rat that he is. Scobie indicates exactly what Harry's mission is, and he writes here, Harry hopes that his actions will simply lead to finding some solutions for improving media practices, that at some point those in the British government, including the Department for Digital, Cultural, Media and Sport, will push for a substantive overhaul, with a switch to a Labour government looking likely in 2024, after the Conservative Party, largely supported by media barons who control most of the country's papers, have been in power since 2010. That could happen. It would also be an achievement far greater than anything he could have done as a spare. Now let's pause for a second. This same group, the Department for Digital, Cultural, Media, and Sport, are the ones that push that online safety bill. It's disgusting that Harry is pushing this agenda, supporting people that have trashed his own family. That byline investigates. Yes, Harry and Meghan have been behind supporting that Fugazi news media outlet in pushing out that propaganda leading up to this book being released. We all know that this was part of the smear campaign. Honestly, the laws that are now being put into effect needs to be turned around onto the very same people who have pushed for it. So I would like to see, hopefully in the future, someone come forward and charge Meghan and Harry for hurting so many people. I think it's time to start using these laws that these people have felt so righteous in implementing. If you're in the UK, contact Ofcom, file a case, let them know that this Harry and Meghan propaganda and attacks against your institutional monarchy is hurting you and you're being offended. Because essentially that's what this law is about. If you feel offended in any way, which I think white people now should feel offended because there's so much racism that these race baiters keep provoking and pushing out there, it is divisive. It is toxic. Go after Harry and Meghan. If I was in the UK, that's what I would be doing. These woke manipulators use the law to go after Russell Brand and Dan Wooten and others. So it's time to flip the script back on them. Go after them now. Use the law. Let it be your friend. Now, of course, this is all my opinion. That's what I would do if I was in the UK and I wanted this nonsense to stop.
And this is the really important part about this book. It shows the Sussexes are continuing their war. They are all the time looking for a way to needle and to discomfort and to destabilize the royal family because it's in their financial and professional interest. And that is really where the sin of this book is. That actually the attack on the royal family is Meghan and Harry talking in their anger that they can't actually make any headway in California, in America, with their careers, other than by rubbishing the royal family who tried their hardest to make them feel at home and all the rest of it. And so I think what Scobie's doing is quite shameful, but on the other hand, what I think Meghan and Harry have done is quite shameful, so they're in the same boat.
And there is this book in a nutshell. Folks, I'm going to be going through more of it. This is just first glance over it. I can tell you right now that it is garbage. It is written by Meghan and Harry and fully backed by Meghan and Harry. And this mouthpiece who's spewing it off has literally just killed his career, whatever is left of it. I've yet to see what other people have said and reviewed on it, so I will be taking a moment to spend some time in that area. But as always, definitely let me know what you think below, and I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!
It was such a fraud.